Hi friends, welcome to Invited Back with Sabeth Kapahu. I am so thankful that you have decided to spend a few minutes of your time this week here with me, and I know that you'll walk away having found a sacred space of solidarity and encouragement. This is my birthday week, and I have a special guest with me today who can share this story from firsthand experience. My mom. Welcome, Mom.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
So my mom is Captain Ann Ford, and like I said, only she can tell the story of my birth from firsthand experience. And it's not a story that we've told too many times to too many people, but it's definitely one worth sharing. It is a story of life and death. It's a story of a miracle. It's a story of coming back from everything that said this isn't going to happen. So, Mom, why don't you go ahead and start the story? You can share from wherever you want to start.
Okay, yeah. So your life really is a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle that you're alive and so healthy and have been. So, yeah, we were living in Palau, and we were living in Triangle, just the little coral atoll at the north end of Palau. So you could only get into the town or the capital or where the hospital was by boat. You could take a 2-hour ride by speedboat, but that's pretty rough, or it was a 7-hour ride by the slow boat, and it just kind of depended who was going, into town. There might be 1 or 2 boats a week. That's all. So sometimes you'd have to wait a long time just to get into the hospital. But I had lost one baby living in Palau that was born early, and there was nothing they could do, and he died. And so then I was pregnant with you. We're living in the village in Triangle, and I just had this feeling that something wasn't right. So went to the hospital, got checked out by the doctor, and she said, yeah, this baby's going to be born early and there's nothing we can do about it. So just go home and wait for your baby to die or be born, and then, she's not going to live. Well, we didn't know it was she yet. But so, I went away from there, of course, very sad. But I had these friends that lived near the uncle that we were staying with, and they were Baptist missionaries. So at that point, I wasn't really serving God, but I was their friends because he was also the ham radio operator. And his neighbor was the CB commander.
And what does CB stand for?
CBs are kind of like the Army Corps of Engineers. They did a lot of building projects in Palau, just helping them build up their roads and airport and that kind of stuff. So it's part of the U.S. military, sort of. Anyway, he got the CB medic who checked me out and said, "Oh, this baby's perfectly healthy, but you've got to get to Hawaii." And so Palau already had this arrangement with Hawaii to take their medical cases that they couldn't handle in Palau. So arrangements were made, flew to Honolulu, and literally went into labor in the plane. And then this guy was supposed to meet us at the airport, but we couldn't find him. It's long before cell phones. And so we just took a taxi to the Tripler Army Hospital, because that's where the arrangements were. And they, took me in, checked me out, and said, well, this baby's born now, we can't take care of it. So they put me in the ambulance, my very first ambulance ride, and sent me to Kapiolani Women and Children's Hospital, which was a total blessing, because Tripler doesn't have the best reputation, but Kapiolani is like the best hospital in the whole Pacific, so couldn't have been in a better place. And apparently, this is kind of a common thing that happens, premature labor. So they had this whole protocol they went through, and special medications to stop the labor. And then they actually sewed my cervix shut, which they call a cerclage, and then I was in the hospital. And before that, I always thought, oh, it'd be so nice just to stay in bed all day and people take care of you. And it wasn't that great. But so I was in the hospital with this IV to stop the contractions, and that kind of all went on pretty well for 3 weeks. And during that time, they did give me an injection of a steroids that would stress you, the baby, to develop your lungs faster. And I think that really helped. And then the end of my 3rd week in the hospital, it was like 27 weeks of the pregnancy, my water broke and you were coming. There's nothing they could do. So they took me to the delivery room, untied that cerclage, but they did a C-section because of that medication could have caused problems. So did a C-section. You came out 2 pounds and 5 ounces, just little bitty thing, fit in the palm of my hand. Your arms were like the size of my thumb. And so it was pretty stressful that first bit. But so you were in the neonatal intensive care unit, they call that the NICU, and we could come visit you a few times a day. Had to gown all up and all that stuff and go in there, and you had oxygen and IVs, and they were taking a lot of blood tests and stuff. But after just 2 weeks, you'd actually grown enough and your lungs were strong enough that they were able to move you out of the intensive care and just into a regular baby suite. And so you're still in an incubator because you couldn't regulate your temperature. And but I think you were even off the oxygen by then, which is a good thing because sometimes kids that are on oxygen for a long time end up with their vision messed up. But so then you just had to grow, and so I think you were in total was 10 weeks. So I guess that was 2 weeks in the intensive care and then 8 weeks in the other part and growing, and then we got to take you home.
All the way back to Palau.
Well, we took you home to where we were staying, and we stayed in a couple different places in Honolulu, and we did have a pediatrician who had been in Palau and who said, don't take you back to Palau until you were 6 months old or weighed 10 pounds. And so that all happened right before Christmas. And so we took you home for Christmas to Palau to show all the family there. And we were still in Koror, the capital, and you got pneumonia. So 3 days after you were in Palau, you got pneumonia, which the doctor thinks was because of the dry air in the airplane. And they just didn't have good medical care there. So that was scary because they wanted to do all these things, but they couldn't. So they just basically gave you oral medication, and you did eventually get better. But there was about 3 or 4 episodes of having to go back to the hospital because you got sick in those next 6 months. So that's when we decided to move back to Seattle, where there was good care. And then you were always small. You were the same rollerblades, I remember, for like 4 years or something, because you were always the small one, but you just developed perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, and here you are today.
Here we are today. My mom and I are sitting together. I'm about to turn 35. We are both now back in Hawaii on the same island after a lot of different travel and living in the United States, on the West Coast for all of the years of me growing up. And then I graduated high school and moved to Hawaii and got married, and we did some traveling with my husband, and my mom has been all over since then. And sometime I'll have to have you back on and you can tell the story of how you even ended up in Palau, because you sailed there from Seattle, Washington to Palau. So now anybody who's never heard, it's Palau. You can go look it up on the map and you'll have to squint because it is very tiny. But yeah, I am in awe every time I hear that story, and we were just talking about how I probably tell the story wrong every time. So I'm thankful that you guys got to hear it, from the source. And really, Mom, what is the encouragement that we want to leave everybody with this week, especially the moms who are in the NICU right now, or who are experiencing something through pregnancy or their early months of that newborn stage that feels absolutely hopeless, and everybody's saying this is not going to work out? What would you say to that?
Well, fortunately, there was only that one doctor who said it wouldn't work out, and everyone else was super encouraging, and it did definitely help bring me back to the Lord and get back to praying. And I know lots of people were praying. So, and that was 1986. I mean, just think how much more science and medicine has improved since then. So yeah, I just say there is hope. Don't give up hope. And not every situation has such a happy ending, but yeah, count your blessings and just trust that God is in control.
Yeah, and I've seen that play out in your life time and time and time again, and in my life too. So well, thank you for being with me today. Thank you for being willing to share your story. And for those of you that are listening, we're sending our aloha to you today, and a story of hope. And we pray that this would remind you that nothing is impossible. And like my mom said, we know that not every story ends with such a good result. And you, Mom, have experienced that yourself, before my birth story. So from my mom and I, we send you our love and aloha, and we will see you next time.